Hello, how many email addresses do you have? If the answer to that question is 1, then I suggest you watch this video. In this video, I'm going to explain the advantages of having more email addresses. I'm Terry, and this is Web Safety Guru. So the simplest reason for having more than one email address is a pretty straightforward argument that you should never have all your eggs in one basket. Imagine what would happen if your email address got hacked and the hacker changed the password to your email in such a way as you couldn't access it. In other words, they would have access to your inbox, they'd know everyone who was sending emails to you, you'd have no way of correcting it, short of telling your friends and your banks that your account's been hacked, you'd have no other means of doing anything about the problem. Having 2 or more email addresses fixes this problem because you've instantly got a way of communicating to other people that one of your email addresses has been hacked. You've got to be aware that all of these different types of account will have different levels of security. If you live in a house that has, say, 2 doors and 4 windows, you could have both doors and 3 of the windows locked, double bolted, all the security you need. But if the other window is open, the burglar's just going to get in that. So it makes the rest of the security irrelevant if a hacker can access the weakest point of your defences. Banks generally have excellent security, but fancy football leagues' security is less so. Quite obviously, really. Banks are protecting very important information, and fancy football leagues aren't. This point is particularly true if you happen to be using the same password as well as the same email address for all your accounts. That's a big no-no from me, and I've mentioned the importance of different passwords in a previous video. But yes, you always have to be conscious of you're only as good as the weakest point in your security. For this reason, I would recommend having your really secure accounts using separate email addresses. You'll probably be aware by now that very secure accounts such as banks use something called TwoFactor Authentication to further protect their customers. When you try to log into that particular bank account, you'll receive some sort of second test, for example, a text message or putting your cards into a card reader machine. Some secure accounts will send a confirmatory email to a different email address, and this is one of the big benefits of having 2 or more email addresses. If one gets hacked, the hacker still needs access to the second email address in order to get hold of your information on secure systems like banking. So if you do have 2 or more email addresses, you can set up a secondary email address as part of the 2-factor authentication for your first email address. A good example of this is Google, who are very hot on security. Fair's fair. I don't always like Google, but they're particularly good on this. If you try and log into a Google account from a new device and you've got your security set up correctly, you will get a text message on your phone, but you will also get a Google alert, and just for good measure, it will send an email to any non-Google email accounts you've registered with them. So you get several warnings if someone's trying to access your Google account, and this is a really good feature. It's not just Google either. Even Yahoo Mail does this, and one that I would recommend is one called Proton Mail. It's Swiss, and they're very hot on this sort of thing. And another really obvious reason for having multiple emails, but it's one that's often overlooked, is that let's say you've got an account with Barclays Bank, for example. Now, you might have registered with Barclays using your Google Mail address. So imagine you get an email from Barclays to your Hotmail account. If you're paying attention, you should instantly know that it's not really Barclays, it's a scammer. A lot of people overlook this simple fact. You know, if the bank is sending emails to the wrong email address, it's not really the bank. It's that obvious, but people don't always see it when they're in a hurry. So how many email addresses should you have? Well, frankly, if you're able to get over the logistical problems of managing multiple email addresses, the answer to that question is the more the merrier. I certainly think you should be having 1 or 2 email addresses purely for your really secure financial information. You should have 1 email address just for mucking around with. I mentioned, say, fancy football leagues or logging into internet music, for example. You don't need the same level of security on that. You know, who cares if someone uses your account to listen to Planet Rock, for example. But you just have to make sure that you have all the stuff that it doesn't really matter if you get hacked on a separate email address and password than the stuff that really does matter. I would recommend having certainly at least 3 email addresses, and well, if you can manage 10, do 10. So the big takeout from this video is that you are taking a lot of risks by only having 1 email address. The more you have, the more chance you've got to set up sophisticated systems such as really clever 2-factor authentication to protect all your other accounts as well. You should certainly have your really important stuff on a separate email address to other stuff, just like you would have different passwords for your important accounts. You know, in an ideal world, we'd have a different password for every single thing we have. But if you log into 200 different things, you're not going to want 200 different email addresses, and you're not going to want 200 different passwords. So I acknowledge that, but the stuff that's really, really important, you should have separate passwords for, and you should consider having separate email addresses for as well. I wouldn't put them all on, say, Google. I'd have 1 on Google, 1 on Hotmail, 1 on ProtonMail. There's many, many more, Yahoo, for example. So don't worry about that. Don't be scared to use some of the independent ones. And finally, for this video, I would emphasise the importance of setting up 2-factor authentication in as many places as possible and having as sophisticated a system as possible. I referred earlier to Google, and in that case, you get a Google notification on your phone, you get a text message and an email to a different email address. So that's a superb level of security, but you certainly don't want to be dependent on one particular source for 2-factor authentication. For example, if you got your phone stolen, you'd no longer have the ability to authenticate using your phone number until you recovered your phone number, of course. And during that time, the person who stole your phone effectively has the ability to 2-factor authenticate your accounts. So that's it for this video. Why don't you have a crack at setting up a new email address today? It only takes a few minutes. I'll be back again soon, but until next time, stay safe online. Make sure you subscribe and you'll receive a notification when there's a new video on the channel. Please like and share this video, it helps spread the word. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments. And until next time, stay safe online.